Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here is your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, welcome, my friends. I don't know if you've been paying much attention to what's been happening in Dearborn, Michigan, but I want to talk about that today. A lot going on in Dearborn, Michigan as it pertains to, the fight, I guess, between freedom-loving Americans and those who, at least a certain sect of people who want to usher in Sharia law, Islamic Sharia law, into, well, around the world, by the way. Now, of course, there's people fall all across that spectrum. I'm not insinuating everybody, it's as nice and neat as that, but at its core, that is part of the battle, at the heart of the battle of what we've seen with some of these protests in Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know how much this has been covered in the news media, the traditional mainstream American news media, but we're going to talk about it today, my friends. That's what we're going to do. I want to dig into this and just talk about what's at stake and what's really going on here. So that's where we're headed today, my friends. I welcome you to this program, no matter what your background, what you believe, your ideas and worldview is. I welcome you to the program. I hope to persuade you for constitutional conservatism. I hope to help point you to truth, my friends. Truth is what matters. We better embrace it with all we've got in this world full of lies and people who want to perpetrate lies, no matter what, to support their morally bankrupt worldview and ideology and their selfish ambitions, vain conceits, and whatever it is that they want to pursue personally, and they don't want to be told that it's immoral and everything else. So that's where we're going to get to today, my friends. But before we get started, let's be honest. When your financial world starts getting a little more complicated, you need more than just one-size-fits-all advice. That's where Full Suite Wealth shines the brightest. Jason and his team specializes in working with families and individuals that are at your level, offering personalized guidance that goes far beyond the basics, from private equity and private credit to options, strategies, and coordinated legal planning. Full Suite Wealth helps you see the big picture and make confident decisions about your legacy. It's all about having a dedicated team guide you, help you every step of the way so you can focus on what matters most, your family, your goals, and your future. If you want real confidence in your financial life, visit fullsuitewealth.com. That is fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. All right, so we're going to talk about Dearborn and what has happened there last week. Tensions are high. Tensions have been high. So let's just kind of give a little bit of a background here. There's Dearborn, if you don't know, Dearborn, Michigan, in the Detroit area, has become a very highly populated Muslim area. And there were demonstrators who came to the city to protest. Some attempted to burn the Quran, and there were local residents, many, of course, Muslim residents, some reportedly Christian residents as well, that tried to step in and to stop this. So, why is this happening? Well, if you go back, and I'm going to play for you here in a moment, a clip, a soundbite, something I referenced on this program. This goes back about 3 months, 2.5 months anyway, into early September, when a pastor in the city of Dearborn went to a Dearborn City Council meeting to address the council, the town council, the city council, I guess, on their decision to put up new street signs honoring an Arab American news publisher named Osama Siblani, Siblani. I'll have this stuff in the stack of stuff for today's show if you want to go to the website and see it at toddhuffshow.com. But I'm going to do my best to say it over, obviously over the program. But if you want to look more into this, it's there, or you can Google it. That's the proper pronunciation. Okay, or the spelling, I should say. Okay, so this resident, who's a pastor, his name is Ted Barham, Barham. He, during this session, this meeting, he comes to the podium to address the council, and he accuses Siblani of supporting, again, Siblani's the one that they are naming the streets after in Dearborn. He accuses Siblani of supporting Hezbollah and Hamas, and he's reading from quotations that he has pulled up online. He's actually standing at the podium reading from his smartphone as he's got these queued up and ready to read them. So the street signs were installed by Wayne County, not the city, according to what I've read here. But nonetheless, there's an exchange that quickly escalated into a heated confrontation at the climax here of the story is that the mayor of the city of Dearborn chimes in and tells the pastor that he's not welcome to live there. In fact, he said, I'm going to throw a parade when you decide to move out of this city. So you have the mayor. It's crazy times here. You have the mayor telling this resident that he's not welcome in his own city, right? In his own city, and that when he moves out, the mayor is going to throw a party, have a parade. This sounds like Nebuchadnezzar or something in the Old Testament. But this is what happens. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of this so you can hear some of the quotes and the exchanges yourself. You're going to hear some city council government speak where they step in and they say, you can't make these allegations. You can't interpret his words. Don't be doing that. You'll hear some people saying you're talking about supporting terrorism or whatever the language is here. We got to be careful. We got to da-da-da-da-da, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to hear this guy. There's going to be some exchange. You're going to hear this pastor continue to read these quotes, and then you're going to hear the mayor jump in at the end. So I want to play this. This is a couple of minutes. I might jump in here for clarity or to explain what's going on. Sometimes it's hard if you're just hearing something versus this is coming from audio that's connected to the video that I'm able to see. You can't see it. So I'm going to potentially have to frame it or chime in here a bit. But all that said, This is kind of at the base, the root. This is just one example, but this sort of thing, and I'll get to other things as to why these bikers and other folks showed up in the city to protest what's happening here, to challenge what's going on. I'll get to that, but this kind of, I think, is the most recent and obvious example as to the real battle that's going on here in Dearborn. And some of you might think, why do I care about Dearborn? Listen, Dearborn's not in my state, but it's in the state immediately to my north. I think Dearborn's probably around, 5 hours drive from where I am. But this is our country, and this is indicative of what is happening. Some of the battles that other folks in other parts of this country are facing. And I'll share more about how this might impact or play a factor here for those of us even in this state. But anyway, that being said, let me play this exchange with Ted Barham, the pastor who's going to the city council, and you're going to hear the mayor. If I didn't say his name yet, I don't think I said his name yet. The mayor's name is Abdullah Hammoud. He's going to chime in here at the end. So that being said, here's the clip.
I'm quoting, irrigates the land of Palestine. And then further quotes, he talks about how the terrorists should strike them with knives and with their bare hands, and they're victorious. And he also encourages the use of rockets over there. And then another quote from 2022, "We are the Arabs who are going to lift Palestinians all the way to victory, whether we are in Michigan and whether we are in Jenin." So the reason why I mentioned this is that it sounds like he could be inciting violence in Michigan. "Believe me," I'm continuing the quotation. He says, "Believe me."
He's not. I just want to be clear. He can speak for himself.
Okay, let me pause again. What's going on here? He's reading. That's all. You heard it. You heard what he said. You heard, and he's going to read more of these quotes. This pastor's saying, "Look, listen, we've got this street named after this guy. I'm going to read some of these things that he said. If you listen to them, he's calling what sounds like might be violence no matter where we are. We just named a street after him. That could certainly mean that he could be calling for violence here." And somebody on the city council chimes in, one of these members of the city council, and basically chastises the pastor for interpreting the words of Mr. Siblani. Of course, the guy the street is named after. And basically says, you can't interpret his words. I'm going to interpret them and tell you what he means. That's what's going on here.
Well, this is
I'm
speaking for himself.
going to stop you because he's not a violent person.
Oh, you say
And
so.
you can interpret his words any way you want.
So can you.
But I will guarantee you he is not intending to incite violence.
Just wait till they get to the word. I mean, you've heard some of them already. Listen, with rocks and bombs. And, I mean, I don't know. Are bombs peaceful? Is that what we've gotten our point to here? This is madness. Madness. This is in the city council in Dearborn, telling the resident, the pastor, you can't interpret his words. Let me tell you what he means. He doesn't mean violence. You need to shut up. I'll tell you what he means. He's a good man. Who dare you to come to this podium and speak against this guy like this? And again, the pastor's remaining very calm. He's listening. I just feel like we live in the bizarro universe many times, but they continue.
Anywhere in the world.
Well,
He could defend himself if he were here, but
Sure.
we're not going to allow personal attacks in our community.
There's no personal attack. He's saying what he interprets this to mean. And you'll see that there's good reason to think the pastor's interpretation is spot on accurate. He's not here to defend himself, so you can't. These mamby-pamby, these people who sit on these city councils, I tell you, these people are, again, my father has a name for these folks, overeducated idiots. I'm telling you, this is spot on accurate. These people who have all these rules, they silence the voices of the people that they're supposed to be representing. They tell you can't interpret his words. Let me tell you what the words mean. He's not here to defend himself, so you can't tell us what you think his words mean. My goodness, this is so stupid. There's a lot of people. There are things that I talk about on this program every day. I take the words or quotes or comments or policies, and I tell you what I think about them. Am I not allowed to do that unless I have the person who might be supporting such policies on here to explain, to defend? Is that the way that this should work? Can we not look at the facts? Can we not look at the quote? I mean, his quote is his words. This is crazy talk, but they continue here.
I mean, I'm just reading his words here.
Fine, but
They
you're
seem
interpreting
very.
his words after you read them. He did not use the word violence, did he?
Is that the
Well,
only...
may I continue the rest of the quote?
Well, if you say you want to read them, you can read them. If you want to interpret and give your own opinion of what he's thinking, that's a different story.
Okay.
I just the idiocy. I don't know if this guy, I don't know his political party, that fool talking there. I don't know. I don't really care. See, I don't care. I'll be consistent. If this is a Republican, he needs off the council. If he's a Democrat, needs off the council. If he's a independent, voted off the council. This is craziness. So his logic is, unless he uses the word violence, he's not arguing for violence. He can call for bombs and missiles. He can call for, I guess, intifada, I guess. He didn't use the word violence. Did he specifically say violence? I tell you, I had class with some of these people 25 years ago. I sat under the instruction of professors who have this level of critical thinking ability in college. I've dealt with them. You've dealt with them along the way in your life as well. They are foolish. They are useful idiots. I don't mean to be too harsh here, but I don't care. We have entered the point of danger, legitimate danger for your family, for your liberty, for your future, for your children. We are in the real world of danger here, where they are literally putting street signs up honoring a guy that says some of these things. He continues here.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to discuss this. I just want to finish the quote because there's more. Okay, I'll continue. Whether we are in Michigan and whether we are in Jenin, believe me, everyone should fight within his means. They will fight with stones, others will fight with guns, others will fight with planes, drones, and rockets, others will fight with their voices, and others will fight with their hands and say, free, free Palestine.
Pause. Does that, he mentions, again, Siblani, who he's quoting here, mentions specifically in Michigan. This guy lives in Michigan. Dearborn is in Michigan. He says some will fight with stones, some will fight with rockets, some will fight with airplanes, some will fight with drones, some will fight with their words. Okay, I can say that maybe isn't violent in and of itself, but it is violent tucked in the middle of all that other stuff. What on earth is going on? That guy sitting on the council doesn't think that these words are violent. The reference to a plane references 9/11. The references to drones reference what happened in Israel on October 7th. Fighting with stones. That's people in the Middle East who have been fighting against the American presence, military presence. I mean, it's, of course this is violent. What is this knucklehead's problem? But this pastor is trying to talk reason to a group of people on this committee, this town council, city council, I should say, who have no business. They have, folks, the Bible talks about being given over to a reprobate mind. This is what it looks like. Not the pastor, these fools sitting on this council. He continues here.
So I just find it very concerning. Did my 3 minutes include other people's words
that's
as
okay.
well?
There was some dialogue, but as the councilman indicated, and just we wanted to make sure you be careful when you're talking about incitement or riot. There's legal terminations for that. There's legal precedent for that, and that's what the councilman has indicated. That you're drawing a conclusion that you have the right to draw. But as I indicated, the sign was placed from the county in that location. So, did you have anything else you'd like to speak on?
Okay, so that's kind of where it kind of takes a little bit of a breather before the before the mayor, I should say, jumps in. Take a little pause, and I'm going to reset this here as we get to the mayor's comments, which are coming here in a moment. So that's the basic exchange. They're criticizing this guy for basically saying you're accusing him of things. You maybe they're almost seeming to try to intimidate him to say, you're getting into legal territory here. You don't want to say something as a matter of it's his opinion. You can state your opinion, my friends. My interpretation of what this guy said is that he's calling for violence. Oh, and you know why I say he's calling for violence? Because he is calling for people to use rocks and rockets and planes and drones to fight against those who aren't in the Free Palestine movement. See, I call that, and reasonable people call that, we call that violence. That's what we call it. That's what it is. And so now they're trying to shut this guy up. He's not done, but the mayor's going to come here in a moment. Friends, let me remind you, are you tired of spending your hard-earned money at businesses that turn around and support leftist causes, maybe even helping get knuckleheads like these town council members, city council members elected? Well, that's exactly why we created Freedom Marketplace. It is a free searchable directory of businesses that share your conservative values, businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates or causes. No login required. There's no strings attached. Just good, patriotic businesses pushing in the same direction you are. It's totally free to use, my friends. Check it out today, freedommarketplace.net. That's freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all. Let me get back here to this this pastor speaking to the council. He's got a few more things to say before the mayor jumps in, and that's where we're going to pick this back up. So he's going to respond to the council.
To have those signs up there. I mean, I also appreciate how he has helped to people to sympathize with, the people of Palestine, people of Lebanon. As you know, I've lived in Lebanon. I also lived in Israel. I've stayed for several weeks in Palestine, and I feel like, but despite that, I feel like having that sign up there, it's almost like having, naming a street Hezbollah Street or Hamas Street. Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel that's quite inappropriate. And as a Christian, I would like to encourage peace. I'm not just being like, pro-Israel in this and, fight back and that sort of thing. But I would like to encourage peace and not violence. Actually, I'd like to quote from the words of someone who had the same enemy. It was Jewish people who killed Jesus. He was Jewish, but his fellow Jewish people killed him. And he said, the one who lives by the sword will die by the sword. And what I would like to encourage on the other side is peace. He is called the Prince of Peace, and he said, blessed are the peacemakers. And his death at the hands of Jewish people opens the door to peace between Jewish and non-Jewish people. So that's what I would like to actively try to encourage to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Spire. Sure.
Okay, the mayor's going to jump in here, and this is the last bit of this. I want you to hear this all in context. This is going to matter as we head to the remainder of the discussion about what's happening in Dearborn. But here's the mayor's response.
If you'd like to step forward.
I think the only comment I'm going to make, is not
Mayor?
looking for a rebuttal, is
This is the mayor.
the best suggestion I have for you is to not drive on Warren Avenue, or to close your eyes while you're doing it. His name is up there, and I spoke at a ceremony celebrating it because he's done a lot for this community.
Sounds
and
like
I think it's quite hypocritical to know that you're approaching this podium.
This is the mayor.
When you yourself have videos on YouTube, standing in front of my mosque, saying the cruelest of things about Muslims, about the religion of Islam, because you are a bigot, and you are a racist, and you are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city. Because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence. You're somebody who tries to preach it, but in fact you do everything but that. So I just want to put that on the record.
Yeah, thanks for putting it on the record. Now we know who you are. I've got to take a quick time out, my friends. Pick this up on the other side of the break. You're listening here to Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. We're talking about what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan with these protests and so forth that haven't been covered a lot in the media. Be back here, my friends, to talk about that in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. As I was thinking here during the break, do you remember, for those of you who watch The Office, I'm a big fan of The Office. Michael Scott is my all-time favorite character of any television show. A close second would be Cosmo Kramer, but Michael Scott was fantastic. And I remember he hated Toby. Toby was in HR. Toby was the guy who, Toby in a way is kind of like the government. He's got all these rules. Sometimes you can understand the basis of the rules. Many times you can't understand. Like there's just, at least from Michael's perspective, HR has a bunch of rules that are designed to basically take the fun out of life and the fun out of working. And so Toby represents HR. Michael, of course, hates Toby and HR. And I remember there's an episode. I don't remember which one it is. Toby comes into the conference room and it says something, I don't remember, but Michael says this. I do know this. He says, Toby, this is an atmosphere or an environment of welcoming, one of those two. So why don't you just I'm just quoting here. Well, he said, why don't you just get the heck out of here? This is an environment of welcoming. So why don't you get out? That's what the mayor just said. If you listen last segment, the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, told this pastor, listen, I want to be clear. I'm not here to defend anything else. I don't know what I haven't researched the pastor's videos. I haven't gone through his YouTube channel to see that sort of thing. It doesn't matter for the sake of this conversation. Based on the merit of his words, what he's arguing for, reasonable people should be concerned if their elected officials put up signs naming city streets after people who are calling for violence against those who are not in the quote-unquote Free Palestine movement. That should be concerning. And this mayor says, you're not very tolerant. You can't coexist, so why don't you just get the heck out? See, this is what's interesting to the one of the many things that's interesting to me about a worldview that's not rooted in truth. See, when a worldview is not rooted in truth, it will crumble. It cannot stand. And what we have here at its core is a worldview, at least the worldview that he was speaking about here when he was lecturing this pastor. You're intolerant. You can't coexist, so you leave. Well, what's interesting to me is when you have a worldview that's not rooted in truth, your worldview will crumble, and it's going to crumble quickly, especially if it's fundamental. If you've disagreed with fundamental truth to establish your worldview, it will crumble immediately, because the more fundamental your the truth that you reject is, the more critical it is to being a pillar of actual reality. And so you have worldviews that say we all just have to coexist. Coexistence is, and listen, I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in finding ways to live at peace with everybody. But it turns out that's not always possible. And it's not always possible when people call evil good. Woe to him who calls good evil and evil good. We have that happening today. When we don't have objective truth, when we reject that and someone makes a truth claim, then you suddenly want to kick him out of town. Again, I don't know what this guy's views are. I do know that what he said in that video, that audio that I just played for you, makes a lot of sense. Why are we putting street signs up with the guy's name on them who has on the record said things that are violent, seems to be endorsing violence, even mentioned by state, our state name. This guy's from Michigan. He says he mentions Michigan. I'm in Michigan. He's basically calling on people in Michigan and everywhere, by extension, to enact violence against those who are not part of the Free Palestine movement. Well, what if you don't agree with the premise of the Free Palestine? Of course, we agree with free people, but that's, of course, this is a misnomer. This isn't about freeing Palestine. This is about eliminating the nation of Israel. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You don't have to be someone who always agrees with Israel to conclude that that is, in fact, what is happening in that movement. The amount of hatred, the amount of anti-Semitism coming out of the Free Palestine movement. And by the way, it's applauded in many circles. Now they've gotten a foothold in these cities like Dearborn, to the point to where they're putting signs, city street names, the names of people who are endorsing violence, at least arguably, I think as a matter of fact, based upon what he was saying, but at least by argument, you can make the case that this guy, this Osama Siblani, is endorsing violence. And yet, you're not allowed to say that. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man will be king. That is part of what we see here today. But you've got a city, not only this going on, but you have a city that allows the call to prayer to be broadcast at least twice a day. I've seen conflicting reports. I've seen 2 times a day, and I've seen 5 times a day. There's an article from 2018 that said it was broadcast 5 times a day in the city of Dearborn. Now, I've seen people online equate the call to prayer with church bells going off. Those are not the same thing. In fact, let me tell you that the call to prayer is in Arabic, and it's done 5 times a day. I'm not saying it's that in Michigan yet. I suspect it is, but I don't know. The 5 times a day that it's prayed around the world. In order to be Muslim, you're supposed to pray 5 times a day: at dawn, early afternoon, late afternoon, sunset, and night. I can give you more specifics on that as I've got that pulled up here. But the call to prayer, where did that go? I have that somewhere. I'm going to have to dig. I got that somewhere else. Hold on. I'll have to read that in a moment. I didn't get into this final note that I have here. But I'm going to give you the what the call to prayer means in a moment. But it's being broadcast over the city. And listen, it is something that is directly proclaiming the truth. It says that there is no God, but in order to be Muslim, you got to make, I forget the name of the term, but you have to make a confession effectively that says, and for the record, I'm just telling you what it says in no way, shape, manner, or form, and I agreeing with this, but the words are this. They recite, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad, they say, is his messenger. That's what you have to do to become Muslim. Then you've got, you have to pray 5 times a day. You don't know, by the way, if you're ever forgiven or you will ever enter paradise. The only way, according to some Muslim teachings that you make it to paradise to be with God, to Allah, is to die in jihad, which of course opens up a whole other major discussion there that we can touch on, but I can't get to in the limited time here today. But suffice it to say that this is going on in this city. And at the core here, listen, America is a wonderful place. There is freedom of religion, right? First Amendment. People have freedom of religion. But what if? To what degree? Remember, this is tricky ground, and some of you are going to misunderstand it intentionally. Some of you are maybe unintentionally. Others of you, most of you, are going to know exactly what I mean. But let's not forget that there are sects of this faith, Islam, that teaches that America is the great Satan and that Israel is the little Satan. There are Muslim clerics on the record. Yes, they're radical. Yes, they're not necessarily mainstream, although there's debate about where these lines are drawn specifically. But there are people that actively call for jihad against the United States. There are people who call for the establishment of Sharia law in the United States. Look at what's happened in Europe. There are Sharia courts that have been established. These Muslim majority neighborhoods from some radical Islamic groups have come over, taken over parts of these countries in Europe, established their own court system. Sharia law, by the way, is Islamic law. I mean, that's where you're talking about being covered from head to toe, women effectively being property. This is brutal, dangerous stuff. You want to talk about a fascist belief. People jokingly talk about Trump. Here's fascism, Islamofascism, right before our faces, and we simply refuse to accept it or acknowledge it. I'm not saying that it's the case in every circumstance. That's not my point, but to deny that it exists, meanwhile saying that Trump is the fascist, is quite rich, if you ask me, my friends. I got to take a break here in just a moment. There's a lot of confusion out there about kratom, my friends. You've heard the headlines, and most of those headlines are based in, stirring fear and talking about the synthetic junk that isn't real kratom at all. Real kratom is tested and handled with care. That's exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. They're a family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is lab tested for purity, for safety, no chemicals, no fillers, no shortcuts. This is a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations, and it's a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a long pharmaceutical warning label that's a mile long. Start with the Kratom Starter Pack. You can use coupon code Todd Huff to get 10% off your first order, or just go to the website to research, my friends. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. That's Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Time out for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. My friends, the same people that will look you in the eye and say that because you talk about America's Christian heritage, that you are, I guess a Christian nationalist and you're somebody, which, again, maybe you are. I mean, they just misidentify, incorrectly define terms. But the same people who say that you're the ones who are trying to take away freedom and force religion on everybody else has no problem. Some of these folks have no problem with some of these things happening that I'm talking about, which is ultimately why people have gone to Dearborn, Michigan. They've seen what's happened in Europe. They look at what's happening here. They see the call by some. Again, I'm not claiming it's being done by everybody, but it's being done by some. Enough. Open calls for Sharia law, Muslim prayer being broadcast. I pulled this up. I didn't have this before in the last segment. My apologies on that. But here's the Muslim call to prayer in English. Now it's broadcast in Arabic because, as the Muslim will tell you, it's the language of God is Arabic, and so you really can't even properly understand the Quran unless you read it in Arabic. But I'm going to give you the English translation here of the call to prayer. Again, I'm not reciting this. I'm a Christian who believes in Jesus. I just want you to understand, I'm just reading what these words are. God is the greatest. God is the greatest. God is the greatest. God is the greatest. I bear witness that there is no God but God. I bear witness that there is no God but God. I bear witness, the words say here, that Muhammad is the messenger of God. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Come to prayer, come to prayer, come to success, come to success. God is the greatest. God is the greatest. There is no God but God. So they're proclaiming over the loudspeakers. They're comparing this to a church bell. Some people are. A church bell plays, once a week, if they even play church bells, announcing that service is open. It's just pretty music or pretty sounds of bells ringing throughout small town, USA, whatever. This is different. This isn't just an announcement that, hey, services are open. We've got the mosque is open. It is a call to that, but it's a lot more than that. It's talking about the supremacy of their God. And if you look at how Islam is, enforced around the world, especially where some of these folks have immigrated from to this country and elsewhere, you'll find that there's some pretty reprehensible behavior that's happening. And listen, I'm not here to defend everything that's happened in every church. There's some pastors who have done some bad things. There are some priests who have done some horrific things, crimes that have been committed. But I'm not aware, and if this has happened, I fully renounce it, but I'm not aware of anyone using Scripture to defend these folks who have committed these heinous acts. I don't want to get into all of it, but there's some horror. You know some of these stories. I know there's one where the pastor's wife was murdered, and I don't know. Just some bad stuff out there. Some sexual abuse alleged, and that people have been convicted of. All that stuff. I condemn it 100%. The Bible does not, there's no middle ground on that. Whoever does those acts of evil has committed great sin. There's no doubt about that. This is different. There is at least a sect, maybe multiple sects of Islam who believe that they are justified in using force. In fact, there are people who, if you listen to some of these clerics, they'll say first, when they come into a land like this land, the United States of America, they say you can first come to Islam peaceably. You can accept it and make the profession, I guess, that I read to you earlier that they make. Secondly, you can pay a tax to them as someone who doesn't believe, the infidel. They will protect you, but you're going to pay a tax, and you're not in the main crowd. You're a secondary citizen. And then number 3, they'll convert by the sword. I mean, they have said this. I'm not saying it's every Muslim. It's not every person. Just like every Christian. Every Christian didn't behave a certain way. Even, sometimes we act against what the Scripture teaches. Sometimes that happens. And I'm not here to get into the theological discussion of Islam. I'm just telling you, as a matter of fact, that this is taught in certain mosques. And I will tell you, here in this city, not very far from me, is the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA. Islamic Society, ISNA. Their headquarters is here. There were reports, there were reports and that were found in Osama bin Laden's hard drive or through interrogation of his wife after they killed him and raided his, got his computers and all that information. I have seen it reported that Osama bin Laden is believed to have come to the United States in the late 1970s. He came to two cities. One was Los Angeles. The other was right here, Plainfield, Indiana. Undoubtedly, if that's the case, probably meeting with folks. I mean, I don't know. You could ask questions. These are questions that need to be asked. And so there's this tension. And, along the way, where did we... It used to mean something to be American. And now we used to have a melting pot. I've seen it said, and now we have more of a salad bowl, and now we're different salad mixes on the shelves. What does it mean to be American? Why isn't assimilation a thing anymore? Why are we welcoming people in through open borders who actively hate this country? It's a mess, my friends. I'm out of time, though. Gotta go. SDG.